brave Afghan women who sat with Richard, providing their testimonies at the council today. And this is a message that I've received from women in the country. So they do share solidarity with the powerful message that was sent back to them to Afghanistan as well. So thank you so much, everyone. Today's side event is about the People's Tribunal for Women of Afghanistan, and thanks so much to the organizers for arranging such a important side event on a very important topic about concerning the rights of women and girls in the country. Without further ado, I will pass the mic to Mr. Abdullah Ahmadi, the president of the Afghanistan Democracy and Development Organization, for his welcome remarks. You have 2 minutes, Ahmed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today at this important side event. People's Tribunal for Women and for Women of Afghanistan, Judgment, Accountability and Normalization. On behalf of the organizer and partners and co-sponsors, I would like to warmly welcome all of the participants here in the room and those joining us online. We are grateful that you are taking the time to be with us today. We would also like to thank the UN NGO unit for their support in making this side event possible. This event focuses on the situation of the women and girls in Afghanistan. Their voice and the experience must be heard. Today we will listen, learn, and discuss how we can support justice, accountability, and dignity for Afghan women. We also want to highlight something very important. It is encouraging to see that people of Afghanistan and Afghan civil society are not only waiting for the international community to act. They are taking their own initiative and creating meaningful and creative way to seek justice and make their voice heard. The People's Tribunal is an important example of this commitment and courage. We are honored to have distinguished speakers and experts with us today. They will share their knowledge, experiences, and recommendations. We thank them for their commitment and their important work. This event is also an opportunity for dialogue and cooperation. Real change is only possible when we work together, civil society, human rights defenders, and international community. We hope today's discussion will increase awareness and encourage meaningful action. Thank you again for being here and for supporting the rights for women in Afghanistan. I now invite my colleague, moderator, Mrs. Abbasi, to guide us through the podium. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ahmed Yusuf. I just wanted to remind everybody in the room that please refrain from taking pictures or videos. The organizers of the event will take pictures, but please do not take pictures. Thank you. So to begin today's panel, I have several experts, excellent experts, and activists, as well as the special rapporteur sitting with me. I will begin with the panel with Harun Motasim. Harun is an international criminal justice and human rights researcher and academic who's focused on Afghanistan for the past 2 decades. He's currently working for Rawadari, a local organization focused on the People's Tribunal for Women of Afghanistan, and serves as a research fellow at the law faculty of a university in Berlin that I cannot pronounce, so I'm really sorry. So the first question for you, Harun, is that you have been a consultant with Rawadari on the People's Tribunal for Women of Afghanistan. Can you tell us briefly about why and how this tribunal was organized? Did this tribunal meet the victims' and witnesses' expectation? And does this contribute to other accountability pathways for Afghanistan? You have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Abasisep. A very good afternoon to everyone. Because of the shortage of time, I will directly go to the question that you asked. It's a fundamental question when it comes to the People's Tribunal for Women of Afghanistan, that why this tribunal and why People's Tribunal for Women of Afghanistan, while the official mechanisms related to Afghanistan and related to the situation of Afghanistan, which certainly women's situation was also part of it, was going on, particularly the ICC or the situation of Afghanistan before the ICC and the potential case of, or the potential case and the initiative regarding the CEDAW by 4 countries. And at the same time, in fact, the existence of UN specific procedures and mechanisms or whatsoever, that was in fact discussions about that, which possibility was at that time. But still, the question was that why this? In fact, we have to take this into consideration that People's Tribunal, although in some cases are only taking place because of filling the gaps, or for the purpose of filling gaps that are there, because official mechanisms may not be in fact able to act, or there are no possibilities for them. But in some situations they can act parallel, or they can actually be conducted parallel with the official mechanisms. Like that in the situation of Afghanistan, that's the case. Why actually this was needed, as I actually built it on what Ahmed Issa mentioned before, that people of Afghanistan wanted to show and say, particularly women, that they do not want to wait for the others that what they are doing. They wanted to have their own version. And at the same time, this mechanism was there to provide a platform that could not have been provided by official mechanisms. The rules of procedure existing in the official mechanisms and the restrictions existing in the official mechanisms, have left actually people with no options other than conducting People's Tribunal, to just give them a platform to actually make their voices being heard by the people, and to call on international community that this is the situation. Although the decision is not binding, which is understandable, but we all understand that what could really shake the conscience of people of the world to see and to understand and to act upon what's going on against women and girls in Afghanistan. So for that reason, in December of 2024, 4 organizations, Rawadari, DROPS, ARDO, and HRD Plus, joined together and wanted to request the Permanent People's Tribunal to conduct this tribunal for women of Afghanistan. And luckily the request was approved and accepted because of the fact which I mentioned before that, because of the need for it. And then the process for it started in February of 2025 and ended in terms of, in fact, process in 11th of December by the issuance of the judgment of the tribunal. But that was the beginning, at least from the point of view that such a decision would definitely require, in fact, all of us to take action and to take it wherever we can take it. And the other part of your question, was related to the issue of victims. Let me be very precise on this, that at the time that we were having discussions and consultations with people in Afghanistan, particularly women in different provinces of Afghanistan and girls, at that time, we were trying to not create any expectations or false expectations for the people of Afghanistan, because there isn't a golden key in our hand to just open the door, but rather we are using any of the opportunities existing there for us, for the women of Afghanistan. So we tried to use that opportunity, and we told them that let's not judge it now, but listen, it's live streamed, and you will see what's being discussed there and what's being, in fact, said there, and how it could be used for calling on the people of the world, on international community, on organizations, and entirely on the people, because it was a people-led and people actually owned process. So, in fact, at the end, what they saw was more than what they were expecting, because this could not change. We were telling them that this could not change the situation the day after. This is actually a way of providing a platform and informing people, and then it's to the people of the world, to the others, to how to advocate for it and how to turn the evidence or the testimonies into action. So this was the purpose of that, and this is the way forward for us in the coming months and in the coming years. Coming to the last part of your question, which I have 2 minutes, I think. In fact, related to the other accountability mechanisms, that does it really help the others? Certainly, the judgment has a specific recommendations and a specific requests, which in regard to any existing accountability mechanisms, it has a specific calls. For instance, in regard to this case of, or the potential case of CEDAW, it calls on the 4 countries and on all the other countries to just follow or seriously follow this process and to have, in fact, tangible results, or at least get to that level if it's of that capability to go to the International Court of Justice, if this initiative could actually lead to that. At the same time, it calls on the ICC to follow, not only actually suffice with the 2 arrest warrants, but continue to work on that. And at the same time, on all the other accountability mechanisms, as I see my time is actually running out, on all the accountability mechanisms. Now, this is a tool in the hands of people of Afghanistan, particularly women of Afghanistan and women of all the world who are concerned about what's going on against women of Afghanistan, or what's going on against themselves in a corner of the world, which will not remain there forever. So for that reason, then we say that this is a tool now, and this is related to us, how we can use it and how we can, in fact, utilize it for the purpose of bringing justice and accountability for women of Afghanistan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ustad, for being on time. The next speaker with me is online, and I do ask our technical colleagues to allow them to speak. I have Dr. Banafsha Yaqoubi with me on the panel. Dr. Banafsha Yaqoubi is a civil society and human rights activist and served actually as a prosecutor on the team bringing Afghanistan's case before the People's Tribunal for the Women of Afghanistan in 2025. She's also the founder and director of the Rahyab Initiative. So, Banafsha Jan, as one of the prosecutors for the tribunal, can you tell us what standard of evidence and legal framework guided the tribunal's proceeding, and also what patterns emerged from survivor testimonies regarding gender persecution? You also have 7 minutes. Thank you.
Am I audible to you, friends? Can you hear me?
No, you have to, yeah.
Can you hear me first, Jan?
Can you speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. So hello, everybody, and a very good afternoon to you all. So glad that although I'm not with you in person, but I can talk to you from here. And for the questions, I'm gonna just go to my question and answer because of the considering the time. So I think this is a very important question, because the People Tribunal is not a very not a state court, but our work was kind of legal and structured. We tried to do a bit structuralized, and we didn't try to work more like informal and leave it whatever it is. So the tribunal wrote on the norms that they can access, they can assess and evaluate the women violence, and which was, I mean, happening in Afghanistan. So we try to see how can we figure it out if the this violation can accounted as a crime which is happening in Afghanistan. And then we considered Article 7 of Rome Statute, and then other human acts as our references. And then we tried to evaluate all the conventions and the documents that Afghanistan is committed on them. And we wanted to see what is the situation going on there. This, you know, the all convention, including the CEDAW, Convention on ICC, PA on Convention on the Rights of People with Disability, all conventions and treaties that Afghanistan is committed to that. So, and then we tried to have some evidence as well. We used different resources for as our evidence. So we have some direct like survival testimonies. These testimonies came from inside and outside Afghanistan. We tried to consider the women of Afghanistan from different parts of the country, from different provinces, different categories of women, and we tried to consider the different geographical location, the ethnics, different physical condition. As much as we could, we tried to consider. And also we have some people who are out of Afghanistan, neighbor countries, and some people who were just at the in like US or European countries. So we had some evidence which they could come and then they could do their witnesses um, in person. Some of them recorded and sent us their evidence, and some of them they tried to like write their evidence, and then so we had them all. Just the aim was that we needed to have a good representation from Afghanistan to see what is going on from their view, and we wanted to have women of Afghanistan voice there in our indictment. And then regarding the documentary resources, we try to first we try to use official degrees and ethics and like policies which was issued by de facto government authorities. And then we try to use some reports from human rights organizations and human rights mechanisms, like document patterns of violation. And so, as I mentioned, some witnesses coming from inside the country, some from outside, and then we try to ensure that these abuses were isolated incidents or part of a nationwide pattern. That was very important to know that. So the judges examined all documents, and we prosecutors tried to examine this all before submitting the indictment to see if it is like a single event or it was just relevant to one person, or it like a systematic one. And then, but unfortunately, while we assessed it, we saw it was very widespread and systematic violence against all women of Afghanistan, as you are aware of that. So the evidence showed us, as all of you are aware, the privilege of women from the all of their fundamental rights was consistent, and it was geographically widespread and connected to these official authorities. So I'm going to your second question. When we try to analyze all the testimonies, and then we try to go to all the documents, as I mentioned before. So there was three very clear patterns which were emerged. One was the systematic erasure from the public life. As all of you are aware, friends, so women testified from their secondary higher education, bans from work, restriction of movement, exclusion from life and from like social life. So this was kind of formally, because the authority like say that this is your right not to go outside. You shouldn't go do this. You shouldn't do that. This is kind of formally formalized from the Taliban authority. It was not that we say it was like a family. It was for 1%, 2%. No, it was for all of them. And then second was like institutionalized the enforcement and fear, which is very important. So survivors described as arbitrary detention, denial of healthcare, arbitrary detention, and punishment for peaceful protests. For the even if something very small happened, and if some of them just wanted to protest against the Taliban, even at their homes, they were arrested, and they unfortunately they were punished badly. And then so it was like they were under control for each and everything that they wanted to do. And third, which is again it's very important. This is regarding the intersectional harms. As we said, so although all women are under oppression, but this oppression is not similar for all women in Afghanistan. So women with vulnerability have different issues. For example, women in minority ethnics, Shia women, Hazara women, they are experienced, as they mentioned, and as they said, they mentioned like double discrimination, or women with disability as well. And then women for women rights defender or human rights defender, very easily they were specifically targeted. So, and then they were arrested very easily because of their activities. So this means just this gender persecution was compounded by other vulnerabilities.
Can you hear me,
And
Banafshah
then,
John? Sorry,
Go
your
ahead.
time.
Okay, I will
Thanks.
stop here. Just that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll stop.
sorry for cutting you off. The next speaker is actually sitting beside me. I have the UN Special Rapporteur, Richard Bennett. I don't need to introduce the ASR. He serves as the ASR for Afghanistan, but also his lengthy work experience on human rights and other conflict countries as well, in Afghanistan as well as other conflict-affected countries. So, Richard, you witnessed both the hearing session in Madrid and the judgment session in The Hague. In your reflection as the UN Special Rapporteur for Afghanistan, what are your main impressions of the hearing and the judgment, and how do you think the tribunal advances discussion and action about accountability in Afghanistan? You have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Freshta, and thanks to the organisers for inviting me to speak. This was the first Permanent People's Tribunal hearing that I've ever been to. I didn't know what to expect. I'd done a bit of reading. And I also had the honor of attending the judgment as well as the hearing in Madrid. And I'd like to begin by thanking the Permanent People's Tribunal and its staff for accepting this important case and providing the structure and platform for this hearing. My abiding impression, which you asked about, is of the courageous testimonies of survivors and witnesses, the dignity, bravery, and strength they showed, often at great personal risk, in recounting their deeply personal experiences of persecution, discrimination, and violence, including sexual violence. And it underscores the indispensable role of survivors' voices in any pursuit of justice. Second, too often in international processes, the people most affected are relegated to the margins, and this should never be the case. Placing Afghan voices at the center of proceedings such as these is not only a moral imperative, it should serve as a model for future efforts to improve the human rights situation in Afghanistan and ensure accountability for past and ongoing crimes. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the Afghan lawyers, experts, NGO leaders, and survivors, some of whom are in this room and are online, who led the process, shaped the evidence, and exposed the nature of the Taliban's crimes, ensuring that the world cannot look the other way. Another strong impression I have is that the PTWA, I think we're calling it, shows how Afghan-initiated actions, as Mr. Ahmadi said at the beginning, and I think Ustad Haroon as well, it shows how Afghan-initiated actions supported by the international community can have impact. It illustrates the power of taking an initiative and not just pleading or waiting for others in the international community, for governments particularly, to take the initiative. It takes some power back, and it moves the center of gravity back to Afghans, and in particular to Afghan civil society. That's such an empowering and positive thing. And the tribunal's finding that the Taliban has committed and continues to commit crimes against humanity, including persecution on the ground of gender and other inhuman acts, marks an important moment of moral clarity for the people of Afghanistan. I also just want to note that the High Commissioner's report, which he presented this morning, also has a full paragraph on the People's Tribunal, which I think is welcome. And so thanks to my colleague, the High Commissioner and the office. And while the tribunal's ruling doesn't carry the binding authority of an international court, it represents a powerful vindication for victims and survivors who continue to live under this extreme and authoritarian regime, and a confirmation that the world can see what they are enduring and that their evidence is believed. and that the responsibility for those crimes lies squarely with the perpetrators and not with the victims. I welcome the tribunal's call to the UN and its member states to declare solidarity with the voices and struggles of Afghan women, including by calling for strengthening of the global accountability framework through codification of gender apartheid as a crime against humanity in international law. And to members of the international community who seek to normalize or legitimize the Taliban, the tribunal's judgment sends a clear message. Attempts to confer legitimacy on a criminal regime will not foster stability, but will rather entrench discrimination and perpetuate cycles of violence that Afghans have endured for decades. Choosing that path would constitute not only a profound moral failure, it would have lasting practical consequences. And I noted in his concluding comments at the session this morning, Ambassador Andisha called that futile, naive, and self-deceptive. The ruling highlights and affirms what women and girls in Afghanistan have known for a long time. They're living under the yoke of a deliberate, institutionalized system of gender discrimination, oppression, and domination that affects almost every aspect of their lives. Under the Taliban rule, Afghan women and girls are denied their most basic human rights to work, freedom of movement, health and bodily autonomy, as is in my recent report, freedom of expression, assembly, and participation in public life. The tribunal's determination that the Taliban's policies and their implementation constitute inhuman acts and persecution on the ground of gender is a crucial recognition of the scale and intention behind this oppression. Women and girls bear the brunt of this draconian system. However, all Afghans of whatever gender are affected. And I'll just wrap up by saying that the reality is that much work lies ahead if we are to challenge and dismantle the Taliban's institutionalized system of gender discrimination, oppression, and domination. But while the path is long, it is now not without direction, thanks to the tribunal and others. There are a range of actions and interventions needed, which, when combined, offer the potential for the emergence of a safe, stable, and inclusive Afghanistan. I have called that an all-tools approach. There's no time to discuss that now, but I put it on the table. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Richard. So the next speaker is online with us, Mariam Sofi, and I again ask technical colleagues to join Mariam with us. Mariam Sofi is the Executive Director of the Organization for Policy Research and Development Studies, DROPS. She's also a researcher and peace-building practitioner, currently focusing on the collection of gender-segregated data to inform international policymaking on Afghanistan. So, Mariam Jan, you were one of the co-organizers of the tribunal. Can you please tell us what messages does the tribunal send to Afghan women who continue to resist exclusion, and in what ways the judgment could help create this space for campaign and advocacy? You have 7 minutes. Can you, technical colleagues, can you please connect Mariam Sofi online with us?
I don't think she's connected.
Okay, so it looks like Mariam Sofi is not connected. Okay, so I will go to the speaker that is sitting with me in the room, and we will come back to Mariam Jan. The next speaker is Mahmouda Sonia Iqbal, a dedicated human rights advocate and former research fellow at the Raoul Wallenberg Institute. Sonia Jan has spent over 15 years simplifying the voice of women and marginalized communities through her work in Afghanistan. Sonia Jan, how can this judgment inform or complement ongoing accountability proceedings, and how it can be used to utilize the accountability and justice efforts on Afghanistan? You've got 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. We are at a turning point in the struggle for accountability in Afghanistan. For years, we have documented the systematic erasure of women and girls. But today, the conversation has changed. We're no longer just describing a tragedy. We're witnessing an active international criminal prosecution. I'm here to discuss how the work of civil society, specifically the December 2025 judgment of the People's Tribunal on Women of Afghanistan, is the essential link in the chain of justice that leads directly to the International Criminal Court. In July 2025, the ICC issued historic arrest warrant for Habatullah Khundzada and Abdulhakim Aqani. The change is gender prosecution as a crime against, their charge is gender prosecution as a crime against humanity under Article 7 of the Rome Statute. This is a landmark moment. It affirms that the Taliban's policies are not just cultural differences, they are international crimes. However, the ICC's Office of the Prosecutor cannot be everywhere. It needs a verified forensic record of how these crimes are being committed today. Under the new 2026 Criminal Procedure Code, which further institutionalizes the erasure of women from legal systems. This is where the People's Tribunal becomes a vital tool. Civil society is not just a witness. By conducting its own judicial process in December 2025, civil society has, 1, preserved evidence. It has secured the testimonies of survivors who may never be able to speak to formal UN investigators. 2, analyzed state intent. The tribunal's verdict provides the legal analysis of the Taliban's edicts, showing they meet the widespread and systematic threshold required by the ICC. My call today to the newly established investigative mechanism for Afghanistan, IIMA, and to international NGOs is this. Utilize the tribunal's findings. Do not waste time reinvestigating facts that have already been judicially established by civil society. The tribunal has already mapped the command structure. The command structures, it has already identified the inhuman acts. The IIMA must now ingest this work to fast-track the next round of ICC warrants. We are beyond the point of raising awareness. We have the warrant, we have the investigative mechanism, and we have the civil society evidence. Our job now is utility. Use the tribunal's verdict in your statements. Use it to your diplomatic red lines. The women of Afghanistan have handed us the case file. Let us have the professional integrity to use them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonia John. So I'm being told that Mayam is back online. Mayam John, can you hear us? Technical colleagues, can you please connect Mayam?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much. So I will repeat the questions. I will not go through your bio. I have already introduced you to our audience today. So the question for you is that as one of the organizers of the tribunal, can you please tell us what message does the tribunal send to Afghan women who continue to resist exclusion, and in what ways the judgment could help create this space for campaign and advocacy? You have 7 minutes, Mayam John. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. John, for your question, and good afternoon to everyone in the room. I speak today as one of those organizations that did request and co-convene the People's Tribunal for the Women of Afghanistan. Now, what I want to tell you today is that when we brought the tribunal together, we came together because silence had become unbearable. You see, when formal justice mechanisms fail or are delayed or take a long time, Afghan civil society must come through and fill that gap. And we did exactly that. And we built our own forum for that truth. Now, from the 8th to the 10th of October in Madrid, as you must have heard from my colleagues today, 24 witnesses testified before an independent panel of the Permanent People's Tribunal, with judges from Spain, South Africa, India, Italy, Egypt, and Afghanistan. Their testimonies delivered in person through audio recordings and written submissions revealed a consistent and devastating reality. The Taliban's rule constitutes a coordinated and institutionalized system of repression that has stripped Afghan women and girls of their most basic rights with intent, policy, and purpose. The Taliban were formally invited to respond. A summons was sent to their Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the 16th of September. They did not reply. Their silence to us was itself a refusal of accountability. We convened this tribunal to bear witness to what may be the most extreme gender-based form of discrimination in the world today, to honor the resilience and resistance of Afghan women, to create a platform where survivors could speak freely, to challenge the normalization of Taliban rule, and to act as a complementary accountability mechanism where formal avenues have stalled. But beyond legal definitions and institutional findings, the emotional and social cost of this system. It heard of isolation, despair, and the steady erosion of agency and hope that passes from mothers to daughters. What we are witnessing is not only a human rights crisis, but an intergenerational trauma, a deliberate sense of self. It is a moral catastrophe that is unfolding in real time. Now, to get to your second question, what message does this tribunal send to Afghan women who continue to resist their exclusion and suppression? The message is clear and unwavering. The message is, you are seen, you are heard, and your resistance is not invisible. For Afghan women who continue to organize underground schools, document abuses, support one another in secret networks, and speak out at immense personal risk, this tribunal affirms that their testimonies matter and that their struggle is not isolated. It recognizes Afghan women not as passive victims of repression, but as leaders, witnesses, and agents of change whose courage sustains the very possibility of justice. The tribunal affirms that when formal systems close their doors, people have the right to create new spaces for truth and accountability. It recognizes that Afghan women's resistance, whether quiet or public, individual or collective, is a form of leadership that challenges both repression and indifference. Most importantly, it sends a message that their fight for dignity and equality is not forgotten, and that their experiences represent one of the most fundamental tests of the credibility of international law and the universality of human rights. Their struggle is not at the margins of the global human rights agenda. It stands and should stand at its very center. Now, the judgment and recommendations of the panels are not just symbolic. They are intended as tools for action, advocacy, and accountability. First, the judgment provides authoritative documentation and legal analysis that can strengthen ongoing future accountability efforts at national, regional, and international levels. It contributes to the growing body of evidence needed to pursue investigations into crimes against humanity on gender grounds and supports efforts to advance cases within existing legal frameworks, including the ICC and other mechanisms. Second, it offers a unified and coherent framework for advocacy. By clearly naming the nature and scale of the violations and situating them within international legal standards, the judgment equips civil society, policymakers, and states with a shared language and evidence base from which to engage. It challenges attempts to normalize or relativize the systematic exclusion of women and girls, and insists that women's rights must remain a non-negotiable element of any engagement with the Taliban. Third, the recommendations provide a roadmap for action. They call on the United Nations and member states to recognize the Taliban's policies as constituting gender persecution and to support the codification of gender apartheid as a crime against humanity. They urge the swift operationalization of investigative mechanisms, strengthened cooperation with international accountability, and sustained support for Afghan civil society and women human rights defenders. They also call on Islamic countries and scholars to take principled and public positions, rejecting the misuse of religion to justify discrimination, and on a global civil society and media to continue centering Afghan women's expertise, their voices, and leadership in research and policy and public discourse. Finally, the judgment creates political and moral space. It affirms that accountability processes must include women not merely as subjects of policy or litigation, but as key actors shaping the solutions that will define their futures. It reinforces that any meaningful pathway forward must be grounded in their participation, in their leadership, in their vision. Ladies and gentlemen, this tribunal has done what many formal institutions have yet to do.
Thanks so much, Mariam John. Sorry, your time is up. Sorry, I'm cutting you off.
Thank you.
Thanks. We have some time for question and answer, so I will open the floor for questions. We'll probably take one or two questions from the floor, and then we'll get back to the panel and let the panelists to answer the question, and also have 1 minute to for the recommendations or closing reflections. So anyone has any question from the audience? Okay, I think there's a question in the back of the room, so please go ahead.
So this is Benjamin Daniel from World Evangelical Alliance, and I don't have actually a question, but something that is in my mind, that we are talking about a very important issue about the women and girls, but child abuse and child sexual abuse is also a very big problem in Afghanistan and under the regime of Taliban. I would also would like to raise voice about that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Any questions? Yes, there's a question at the end of the room. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Well, the panelists, I just have a question about the future plans of the organizers of this People Tribunal. Are they planning to widen the scope of their proceedings to other cases than violations of women's rights, and how they are planning to build on the verdicts of the court? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We can get one more question from the floor if anyone wants to raise a question. I have so many states in the room if they want to have any remarks. No? Okay. So going back to the panel, probably your question would go back to one of the co-organizers. So I'm not sure if Mariam or Ahmadisab, you want to respond? Okay. So Mariam John, can you hear us? Technical colleagues, can you please connect Mariam Sofi to respond to the question? Thank you.
Yes, Farisha John, I can hear you, but do you mind repeating the question since there was a gap in the internet connection?
Question from the room was that what are the future plans of the organizers of this tribunal?
At the moment, our future plans includes extensive advocacy strategies that we have put in place for this year. One of our key goals is to make sure that the judgment doesn't end in The Hague, and that now the advocacy component of this initiative begins. So we have developed several initiatives to both hold meetings and inform state members in New York at the United Nations there, but also several initiatives involving visiting and having discussions with OIC countries, as well as taking this judgment to South Africa and presenting it there as well. And so the general idea for us as the conveners is to now utilize the advocacy component to make sure that the judgment is heard across the globe by those stakeholders that are interested and invested in the future of Afghanistan. So that is our plan for this year.
Thank you so much. And I'm also turning over to Ustad Harun, who's on the panel with us and has been tirelessly working on the tribunal. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Abbas. I'll directly go and just the comment that was there that, and also connected with the question asked by for Melissa at the end. I think we have to be cognizant of one reality that this tribunal could not solve the problems of Afghanistan, and it was focused on a very specific issue. But at the same time, it really opened the door for other tribunals, although Afghanistan was actually before the Permanent People's Tribunal in 1981 and 1982 when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan at that time. 2 sessions were at that time. But from a human rights point of view and from women's rights point of view, it was the first one. But it opens the door for other people, for other institutions, and it's also connected to for Melissa's question that, in fact, for the future, probably the others, it's not actually only the organizers of this, but the others would take initiatives and then take specific issues and problems of that country related to human rights and then have tribunals on that. But at the same time, when it comes to the plans for the future, if it's connected particularly with this tribunal, as it was mentioned by Safi Saib as one of the co-organizers, I'm actually speaking on behalf of Rawadari here as one of the organizers or 4 organizations there. In fact, the plan certainly is broad to just take the judgment, particularly as it was mentioned by Safi Saib, to the Islamic countries. I could name Turkey, Indonesia, and also to OIC, Organization of Islamic Conference, and at the same time trying to find this or trying to create this understanding that whatever is happening in Afghanistan, although under the name of Islam, but it doesn't have any place in Islam, and this is something that the Islamic countries should clearly and explicitly say that this is what is wrong and a wrong interpretation and understanding from Islam. And for that reason, we had presence of scholars and experts of Islamic law, both at the hearing session and also at the judgment session, to tell the people listening to the judgment or at the same time to the hearings that these things are non-Islamic and they don't have any relation or in fact connection with Islam. So for that reason, that was very important to us, and the message is again, the reason for focusing on Islamic countries is from that angle. But it doesn't mean that the focus is only on Islamic countries. It's actually, the message is very broad and to all the countries, but I'm sure we have a minute at the end, or it's the end intervention. Thank you.
Yeah, so I really wanted to give a minute to each of the panelists for closing remarks, but we don't have time for that. 30 seconds each. I will start with panelists that are online. Technical colleagues, would you please connect Dr. Banafsha for her final remarks? Banafsha John, you only have 30 seconds, and then I will turn to Mariam John after that. Could you please connect Banafsha? Yeah. Okay, Mariam John, you can go ahead. We only have 4 minutes, so 30 seconds, your closing remarks, and then we will go to Banafsha John. Okay, there seems to be a technical difficulty here, so I will turn into the panelists in the room so we don't lose time. So let me begin by Sonia John. Sonia. You've got 30 seconds. Thank you.
There, we have it at hand. And all of the 24 witnesses who have given their time, and they've actually, only they know what they went through to actually provide that testimony. Those testimonies are there. It's important that we all actually utilize that and make sure that their voices are and their testimonies are not just staying in shelves and
Thank
do
you.
that advocacy.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sonia John. Richard, 30 seconds.
Yeah. Thank you. 2 points. One, Carpe Diem, seize the day, take initiatives. This is a good example. Take more initiatives. Don't wait. Don't wait for codification of gender apartheid. Start using it now, using that term, that language. I know you are, but don't wait for the courts or the international community. Second point, what is justice? When I did my access to justice report, we asked Afghans, what is justice to you? It wasn't only criminal justice. It meant access to education, to healthcare, to freedom of expression, and more than anything, the restoration of human dignity meant justice to Afghans. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Richard. Sodharan, 30 seconds.
Okay. I want to be very precise. In fact, now that the judgment is out, it creates responsibility for the states, for the actors, for international organizations to really take that into consideration and see that was what decided by the tribunal, although not a binding decision, really shaking the conscience of people or countries and organizations to think about it, that is this a way of, in fact, acting in a way or in a manner that would give hope to the women of Afghanistan that people are standing on their side or on the other side. And at the same time, if this is not actually giving them this awareness and this understanding and a tool to take action, what will make them to just go to that direction? To me, at least, this is what we have at hand, and we have to use it for this thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. So for 2 panelists online, Mariam John, please go ahead. We can't hear the panelists online. Mariam John or Banafsha John, can one of you speak, please? Okay, I'm really sorry. I really wanted the online panelists to speak, but we have only 1 minute, and I can see that at the end of the room, people are watching me to finish it on time. So very quickly, I'm really sorry that the online panelists didn't have the time at the end to conclude their remarks, but I just want to end today's side event with one message of saluting the brave Afghan women who stood in front of the People's Tribunal, provided their witness statement, and is guiding and influencing our work on Afghanistan. So I hope that we do learn from this experience, center women's voices, Afghan women's voices, and do everything we have in the hand, especially member states who are in the room, to protect Afghan women's rights. Thank you.